I stood in the center of our suburban estate holding a glass of sparkling water while my husband Marcus held his hand over the heart of another woman and told our 100 guests they were getting married. "The divorce papers are already on the kitchen island, Sarah," Marcus said into the microphone, his voice as smooth as the expensive silk tie I bought him for our 10th anniversary. "Elena is the future of my life, and frankly, the future of Miller Tech." My voice tightened as I looked at the woman wearing a white dress to my party, but I didn't cry. I stared at the floor, watching the light reflect off the marble, realizing that every person in this room had known about this betrayal before I did. Is it a crime to destroy a man's life if he used your soul to build his ladder? Or is silence the only way to stay the bigger person? Does a wife who sacrificed her own career to support a husband's dream deserve to own that dream when the man turns into a nightmare? Marcus looked at me with pity, waiting for me to break or run from the room, but the first twist was already in motion. "Marcus," I said, my voice steady, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd, "you should have checked the fine print on those divorce papers before you made this announcement. You assumed I was signing my life away, but I was actually signing your death warrant." He laughed, a short, sharp sound that echoed in the high ceilings of the ballroom. Marcus turned back to the guests, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. "Ignore her. Grief makes people say strange things," he joked, and a few of his sycophant VPs chuckled. But then, the large 85-inch television he had set up to show a slideshow of his and Elena's secret travels across Europe flickered. It didn't show them on a beach in Hawaii or a balcony in Paris. It showed a live feed of his private office downtown. 2 security guards were currently dumping his mahogany desk into the hallway and changing the locks. The room went cold as the guests realized this wasn't a pre-recorded video. This was happening right now. "What is this joke, Sarah?" Marcus hissed, his face turning a sickly shade of gray as he watched his nameplate being tossed into a trash bin on screen. The twist? Those security guards didn't work for Miller Tech. They worked for SM Holdings, a shell company I had started 3 years ago. I didn't just own a few shares. I'd been buying up his company's bad debt and high-interest loans every time he took Elena on a secret shopping spree or a private jet. He had been borrowing money to fund his affair, and he had been borrowing it from me. He wasn't the CEO anymore. He was a tenant in a building I already owned. Just as Marcus reached into his pocket for his phone to call his head of security, the heavy oak front doors of the estate swung open. 3 men in dark charcoal suits walked in carrying heavy leather briefcases. They didn't look like party guests. They looked like sharks in human skin. "Marcus Miller?" the lead man asked, his voice booming over the music. "We are here on behalf of the Board of Directors and SM Holdings. You are being served with a temporary restraining order and a notice of immediate termination. You are to vacate these premises and the company headquarters immediately." If your husband announced his affair at your own anniversary party, would you walk out quietly to save your dignity, or would you stay to watch his entire world crumble in front of everyone? Let me know in the comments. Marcus stood frozen, the microphone still in his hand, letting out a low, electronic hum that vibrated through the room like a warning siren. "The board? I am the board!" he shouted, his voice cracking with the desperation he couldn't hide. But the next twist hit him like a physical blow. One of the men in suits opened his briefcase and handed Marcus a document. It was a voting proxy. I had spent the last 6 months meeting with every single one of his investors in secret, showing them the receipts of his creative accounting. I hadn't just bought the debt, I had bought their loyalty. They didn't want a CEO who spent company money on mistresses. They wanted a leader who was stable. They wanted me. Elena stepped forward, her white dress rustling like dry leaves. She looked at the crowd, her face twisted in a mask of indignation. "You can't do this! We're getting married! We have a prenuptial agreement that guarantees Marcus's assets." I finally let out a quiet laugh that silenced the entire room. "Elena, honey, a prenup only works if there are assets to protect. Marcus doesn't own this house. He hasn't owned it since he put it up as collateral for that expansion loan 2 years ago, the one I personally funded. He doesn't own that car in the driveway. He doesn't even own the watch on his wrist. SM Holdings owns it all, and I am the sole owner of SM Holdings." The guests began to whisper, the sound like a hive of angry bees. People who had been laughing with Marcus minutes ago were now stepping away from him, as if his failure was contagious. Marcus grabbed my arm, his grip tight and desperate. "Sarah, stop this right now! We can talk in the study. Think about our legacy. Think about what this does to the stock price." I didn't flinch or pull away. I just looked down at his hand until he felt the weight of my days and let go. "Our legacy died the moment you put a ring on her finger using the money from my grandmother's life insurance policy, Marcus. And speaking of things that are dying," I pointed to the TV screen again. The feed had changed from the office to a GPS tracker. "That car you love so much, the one you use to drive Elena to the coast, it's currently being towed to a secondary location, and the driver? He's my brother." Is it evil to plan a revenge for 3 years, or is it just being a smart businesswoman? The auditors began moving through the house with clinical efficiency, placing small red stickers on the expensive art pieces in the hallway, the Picasso in the foyer, the Ming vase in the dining room. Marcus was frantic. He ran to the kitchen island to grab the divorce papers he had left for me, thinking he could find some legal loophole or a signature he could forge. He ripped the envelope open, but his face fell instantly. The twist? The papers inside weren't divorce documents at all. They were a detailed forensic audit of every time he had used company funds to buy Elena's silence and luxury lifestyle. Every hotel room in Manhattan, every first-class flight to Dubai, every diamond bracelet. Documented, time-stamped, and categorized as felony embezzlement. "This is a setup! This is all fake!" Marcus screamed, turning to the auditors and the guests. "She's been hiding this. She's been manipulating the books to make me look bad." The lead auditor didn't even look up from his digital tablet. "Sir, we've been tracking these transfers for 18 months. The digital signatures are yours. The IP addresses are from your private laptop. Your wife didn't make you steal. She just made sure there was a paper trail for when you did. We also have the recordings from the hidden cameras in the office vault." Elena backed away from Marcus, her eyes darting toward the front door. She was realizing that the king she had climbed for was actually a man drowning in a sea of his own making. Marcus turned to Elena, his voice a desperate whisper. "Help me. Call your father. He has connections." But Elena was looking at the red stickers on the furniture, then at the auditors, and finally at her own reflection in the hallway mirror. She wasn't looking at a future husband. She was looking at a sinking ship. She didn't say a word. She just adjusted her coat and checked her phone. The betrayal was a circle, and Marcus was finally at the center of it. Every 45 seconds, he tried a new excuse. The economy, the stress, a temporary lapse in judgment. But the auditors just kept moving, tagging his life like it was a garage sale. I walked over to Elena, who was shivering despite the warmth of the room. I held out my hand, palm up. "The necklace, Elena." She clutched the pearls at her throat, her knuckles white. "What? No, Marcus gave this to me for my birthday." I leaned in, my voice a cold, sharp whisper that only she could hear. That necklace was a gift from Marcus's grandmother to me on our wedding day. He took it out of our safe deposit box last month while I was visiting my sick mother. Since it's stolen property, you can give it to me now, or you can explain it to the police officer waiting by the valet stand with a pair of handcuffs. She unclipped it so fast the clasp broke, dropping the pearls into my hand like they were burning her. Marcus watched as she handed over the pearls. He looked like he wanted to stop her, to reclaim some shred of his dignity, but he was pinned by the gazes of 100 people he had tried to impress. "You're taking everything. You're leaving me with nothing." I looked him in the eye, my voice as calm as a winter morning. "I'm leaving you with exactly what you brought into this marriage, Marcus. Your ego and an empty suit." I felt the weight of the pearls in my hand, a physical reminder of the years I had wasted protecting a man who was only interested in destroying me. Marcus slumped against the white marble fireplace, the fight finally leaving his body. He looked at the room full of elite guests he had spent years trying to impress, and saw only mockery and disgust. "What do you want, Sarah? You've taken the company, you've taken the house, you've taken my name. What's left?" I pulled a small black remote from my pocket, the one that controlled the smart home system. "I don't want anything else, Marcus. I just wanted you to feel what it's like to be a guest in a life you didn't earn." I pressed a button, and every light in the 12,000 square foot estate went pitch black. The music cut out, leaving only the sound of 100 people holding their breath in the dark. The emergency backup lights flickered on after a few seconds, casting long, eerie shadows across the panicked guests. The twist? I hadn't just turned off the lights, I had canceled the utility contracts and the insurance policy for the house at 5 p.m. that afternoon. "The party is officially over," I announced to the silent, dark room. "Guests, please use the side exits and follow the glow sticks my team is placing in the hall. Marcus and Elena, you have exactly 10 minutes to gather what can fit in a single suitcase. Everything else in this house, the clothes, the shoes, the jewelry, is now the property of SM Holdings, to be sold at auction to pay back the company's creditors. Since Marcus used corporate funds to pay the mortgage this month, the house has been seized as a criminal asset." Marcus didn't move at first. He stood there, the expensive microphone still clutched in his hand, looking like a statue of a fallen king. He tried to speak, but his voice was a dry rasp. "You can't do this to me, Sarah. This is my life's work." I stepped closer to him, the click of my heels on the marble floor sounding like a ticking clock. "No, Marcus, this was my life's work. I was the one who did the taxes. I was the one who managed the investors while you were at late-night meetings. You were just the face on the brochure, and today the brochure has been discontinued." Marcus tried to argue, his voice a pathetic whine, but the auditors and the private security guards I'd hired were already moving his custom-made Italian furniture toward the moving trucks outside. He looked at Elena, expecting her to stand by him, to offer some kind of comfort, but the final twist of the knife was waiting. Elena was already on her phone, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. She wasn't calling a rideshare app. She wasn't going to a hotel. I had reached out to Elena's other boyfriend weeks ago, a man Marcus recognized as his own former vice president, whom he'd fired in a fit of jealousy. As Elena walked out the front door, a car was waiting for her, and the man driving it blew a kiss toward the house. They had been planning to oust Marcus together. I just gave them the tools to do it. Marcus watched the taillights of that car fade away, and for the first time I saw his shoulders truly slump.
The psychological weight of realizing he was the other man in his mistress's life was more than his ego could handle. He turned to me, his eyes wet, but his voice still bitter. "You've been watching me for months. You let me believe I was winning just to make this moment hurt more." I didn't deny it. I wanted you to reach the very top, Marcus, because the higher you are, the longer the fall takes. I wanted you to have enough time to realize exactly what you were losing while you were falling. I stood on the expansive front porch as the last of the luxury cars pulled away, their headlights sweeping across the lawn like searchlights. Marcus was left standing on the gravel driveway with a single battered duffel bag and a silk tie that was now crooked and stained with sweat. He looked up at me, standing in the doorway of the house I had built and he nearly destroyed. His eyes were filled with a mixture of pure hate and a crushing realization. "You're a monster, Sarah. You're worse than I ever was." I gave him a small, genuine smile, the first one I'd felt in 10 years. "No, Marcus, I'm just the one who kept the receipts. I'm the one who didn't confuse a temporary loan for a permanent kingdom." He reached into his duffel bag, perhaps looking for his car keys, but then he remembered. The car was gone. The garage doors were already being sealed by the auditors. He was stranded at the end of a long, dark driveway in a neighborhood where he no longer belonged. I watched him start the long walk toward the main road. Every 45 seconds, he would stop and look back, hoping I would call him back, hoping this was all just a nightmare. But the gates were already closing. The heavy iron bars met with a loud, final clack that echoed through the trees.
I got into my SUV and started the engine, the seat heaters warming me against the night chill. I didn't look back at the estate as I drove through the gates. It was just a building, then buildings can be sold. As I drove toward the city, toward the hotel suite I had booked for myself, I picked up my phone and made one last call to my lead attorney. "It's done," I said. "List the property on the market tomorrow at sunrise. And the personal belongings? Donate Marcus's entire wardrobe to the local men's shelter. Everything. Except for that silk tie he's wearing. He can keep that. He's going to need something to hold his head up with when he's looking for a job." I hung up and took a deep breath of the cool night air. For the first time in a decade, the silence wasn't lonely. It was a victory.